was troubled by bullying from my mother-in-law, Catherine. One winter day, I found myself thrown out onto the balcony.
You, a worthless person like you, don't need a warm home, do you? Just shiver there.
Catherine said with a cold laugh. Fortunately, I had my smartphone, so I called my husband, John, for help. But he replied with a cruel laugh.
I'm going out for a drink now, so long. This is revenge.
And hung up. That moment was a huge shock. I couldn't accept such treatment from my family. I decided to give divine punishment. I am Emily, a 31-year-old office worker. I am the same age as my husband, John. We met working at the same company. He was very friendly and easy to talk to, and we quickly became close. We married when I was 27. I never met John's father, as he passed away when John was young. Catherine seemed very kind and well-mannered. I thought we could get along well. The apartment complex John and I lived in had good relations with the neighbors, and I was friendly with other residents. I also had good relations with my relatives, and we sometimes enjoyed meals together during New Year's holiday. I thought I was living a blessed life, but it didn't last long. One day, 3 years into our marriage, John suddenly proposed.
Mom says she wants to live with us. She's getting older, and I want to be there for her in case something happens.
I agreed to this proposal. I thought I could get along with Catherine, and I felt John was a filial son. That's why I welcomed Catherine into our apartment, but that decision later became a big thrill for me. For about 2 months, living with Catherine went well. She was good at cooking and taught me many new recipes, which I appreciated. However, Catherine's true nature slowly began to emerge.
Emily, when do you plan to quit your job? You should support John more as his wife. Isn't that the role of a woman?
She said. Suddenly being demanded to follow old values, I was confused. Due to our financial situation, and since I can balance it with household chores, I haven't considered quitting my job.
What? You can't do anything properly. You served ready-made meals yesterday, and there's hair on the floor. Can you say you're managing in the household chores?
Every family uses ready-made meals occasionally, and I clean the floor with a sweeper every day. It's inevitable for hair to fall on the floor. Can't you overlook it a little? But Catherine's anger didn't subside. It only intensified.
Ready-made meals can't be good for you. Eating something when you don't know what's inside is the source of illness. Making John and me eat that is not normal,
she said, completely against the ready-made meals. When I asked why she was so opposed to them, she showed me a video on her smartphone. It was a video explaining how dangerous ready-made meals are. I'm not an expert, so I can't be sure how accurate the video is, but Catherine's enthusiasm felt a bit excessive. If ready-made meals were that dangerous, many people would already be sick. Sure, eating lamb daily might not be healthy, but I only use them about once a week. I make other meals by hand, but Catherine was stubborn in her opinion. As a working woman, sometimes I just want to settle for ready-made meals. Moreover, John started to agree with Catherine's views.
Honestly, I can't stand ready-made meals either. And since Mom is so worried, from now on, please only serve homemade meals, he said.
Previously, he had been understanding, saying,
It's not easy for a working wife to balance household chores. Using ready-made meals is no problem.
So, I asked John to help with the chores, but Catherine criticized.
How can you make a man do household chores? Are you in a position to say that?
And John joined in, saying,
Exactly.
Then he began to use overtime and weekend work as excuses to be away from home even more. After that, Catherine and John's attitudes continued to worsen. They started throwing away the food I made without eating it and would scatter trash under the guise of teaching me how to clean. Especially, Catherine took the lead in the harassment, and John joined in attacking me. Through his mother, Catherine, John began to be mean to me. I might have things to reflect on, but if so, I wish they would talk to me properly. With such terrible harassment, it's natural for me to feel angry. I repeatedly asked John and Catherine, if there's something you're unhappy about, please tell me directly. It's hard to receive such harassment. But they ignored my requests and kept attacking me without reason. This situation continued for 2 months. Feeling at my limit, I decided to fight back. First of all, I informed the other residents of the apartment about Catherine's and John's malicious acts. Luckily, all the residents believed my story and offered comfort. As a result, they started treating Catherine and John coldly. My retaliation continued, and I also spoke to our relatives about Catherine and John. As a result, they received scolding from various relatives. Being reprimanded by so many, the two of them finally seemed to have a change of heart and said sorry to me.
I'm sorry for being harsh to you. We were wrong,
Catherine said, hanging her head, and John also said,
I'm sorry for hurting an important family member.
After that, their attitudes dramatically improved. John began to willingly help with housework, and Catherine stopped demanding old-fashioned values. A month passed, and the season changed to winter. They continued to treat me kindly, so I thought they had genuinely changed. There was a time when I thought about divorcing John if they continued to treat me harshly, but I felt that was no longer necessary. I decided to seal away John's secret and return to peaceful days. However, this turned out to be a naive thought. One day, John said he didn't need dinner because he was going to a drinking party, so Catherine and I decided to make dinner. Catherine was as usual, and we had a pleasant time. When we were ready to eat, Catherine suddenly pointed towards the balcony and said something unexpected.
Look, there seems to be a shadow on the balcony.
What? No way! My room was on the second floor, so the possibility of an intruder was conceivable. With the recent increase in disturbing incidents, my unease was undeniable. Seeing Catherine terrified, I quietly went towards the balcony. It seemed empty, but I opened the window and stepped out. I looked around, but there were no signs of anyone, not even an animal. It must have been a mistake by Catherine. Just as I thought this, I heard the sound of the lock clicking shut behind me. Surprised, I turned around to see Catherine standing on the other side of the window, smiling coldly.
You! A worthless person like you don't need a warm home, do you? Just shiver there, she said.
I tried to open the window, but it was locked from the inside, and I couldn't get back in. I immediately understood Catherine's intentions. She hadn't repented at all. She pretended to have changed, biding her time to revenge. She must have fabricated the story about the shadow to trick me onto the balcony. Throwing me out was malicious enough, but what made it worse was that it was winter. Standing outside without a coat or a warmer was too cold. I tried knocking on the window and shouting, "Catherine, please open the window!" But she didn't listen. Fortunately, I had my smartphone in my pocket, so I looked it out and called John for help.
I'm going out for drinks, so no. The plan Mom and I thought up worked. I've been waiting for this moment. This is revenge. Ha ha ha.
He said with a cruel laugh, then hung up the phone. Realizing that John was also involved in this plan, I was shocked. I couldn't forgive the fact that they had deceived me together as a family. I resolved to give them divine punishment. However, my first thought was to somehow deal with the current situation. I didn't want to escalate the family issue, but I thought calling the building manager was the only option when I heard a voice from the neighboring balcony. "Is that you, Emily? What happened? It's so late at night. I heard banging on the window and a voice like yours." The balconies of our apartments are connected, but there is a partition in between. I couldn't see the person's face, but I recognized the voice. It was Karen, a neighbor I am close with. Her worried voice truly felt like a rescue. The imperfect soundproofing of the apartment building turned out to be a blessing. My screams and the sound of me banging on the window reached her room. When I explained the situation to Karen, she was shocked and exclaimed, "What? Those two did that? That's terrible." 5 minutes later, Karen came back to the neighboring balcony. "I tried to talk to Catherine, but she wouldn't listen, and the front door is still locked. We have no choice but to call the building manager." "Okay, I'll do that." I immediately agreed and contacted the building manager. I explained the situation and asked to have the door unlocked, even if Catherine refused. The building manager quickly arrived, and after some back and forth with Catherine, he managed to open the balcony window, allowing me to get back inside. Catherine, in a fit of anger, retreated to her room, saying, "Don't make a big deal out of this! How embarrassing!" The building manager was speechless at Catherine's behavior but showed concern for my well-being. I was outside for about 20 minutes, only slightly chilled, and I was grateful for his concern. Afterward, I thanked the building manager profoundly, ate the now-cold meal, and started planning my next steps against the wrongdoers. Once I had organized my thoughts, I took a bath to relax a bit and then went to bed. Catherine seemed to be sulking and didn't come out of her room. Thinking it was pointless to have a conversation, I decided to ignore her for the time being. The next morning, Catherine still hadn't left her room. I wondered if she was still angry, feeling somewhat bothered by the situation, but I knew I couldn't just leave things unresolved. John, on the other hand, had come home late the previous night and was still asleep in bed. I reluctantly decided to check on Catherine, knocking and opening the door. Catherine was lying in her bed. Please wake up, Catherine. We need to talk about what happened yesterday. However, Catherine didn't respond and remained motionless. Worried, I shook her and quickly realized something was wrong. I immediately called an ambulance and Catherine was taken to the hospital. Sadly, the doctor's report was disheartening. She had already passed away, having suffered a stroke in her sleep. Catherine's funeral was held later, but surprisingly few people attended, and no one shed a tear. Shockingly, even John didn't cry. He almost seemed to be smirking. He must have only seen Catherine as a pawn in his plans to handle her conveniently. According to a story I heard from one of the attendees, Catherine had been mean to many people in the past. As a result, no one mourned Catherine's death, not even her son. That was the real Catherine. Although it might seem disrespectful, I thought it was a fitting end for Catherine. A week later, I decided to leave Catherine's punishment to the afterlife and focus on punish John. I first declared the end of our marriage. I don't love you anymore. Let's get divorced. John looked shocked and confused. Wait a minute. I've lost my mother and I'm at the lowest point in my life. If I lose you too, how am I supposed to go on? Oh, the lowest point, huh? But at Catherine's funeral, you didn't cry at all. Are you just reluctant to divorce because your mistress dumped you and left you penniless? I've been suspicious of your absences and had a detective agency investigate. They sent me plenty of photos like this. I said this and showed him a photo of John walking arm in arm with an unknown woman. Additionally, photos related to consumer finance also came up. John's face turned pale. I'm planning to break up with this woman. I overspent on her and got into debt. Please, just spare me the divorce. He pleaded, but I didn't listen to his words. You and Catherine have made me suffer for so long, and now there's infidelity. I can't take it anymore. I'll certainly divorce you and hope you suffer a lot. I unleashed all my pent-up anger, dismissed John's pleas, and returned to my parents' house. From there, I began divorce proceedings through a lawyer and demanded property division from John. Going through a lawyer made the payment process surprisingly smooth. Later, I started a new life at my parents' home and am still living happily. Thanks to my parents' support, I was able to heal from my emotional wounds quickly. By the way, when I left the apartment, I informed the other residents about John's affair. With Karen's story about the balcony incident, John faced criticism from the residents and eventually had to leave the apartment. He turned to gambling due to stress and accumulated a lot of debt. John sought help from relatives and acquaintances, but nobody was willing to help him. He ended up going down the dangerous path of consumer loans. When I learned this, I thought it was well-deserved. I don't know his current situation, but he can continue to wander in his hell. Meanwhile, I've been freed from negative influences, feel lighter, and work is going smoothly. From now on, I just want to enjoy my life and live for myself.